I am tempted to, and I'm going to succumb to the temptation of quoting President George Bush Sr., who, like me, was one of the last speakers in a conference in Beijing. He said, "I feel like the fourth husband of Liz Taylor. I know what to do, but I don't know how to make a difference." The topic of India-China there are so many perspectives, but I think each one is a fertile one. So I'm going to give you one more. So what I'm trying to do is to put together 10 areas that have greatly helped us and also troubled us while building a successful enterprise in China. So what does my company do, NIIT? We are into global talent development, which means we train people. We've been around for 30 years in 40 countries, and we train over 5 million people in 10 languages. That's one part of our business. The other part of the business is we do software services. So if you like the cargo handling at your Changi airport, then you'll have to say thank you to me as well, because it runs on our software. We partnered with SAT, and we've taken this to Beijing airport, we've taken it to Heathrow, we've taken it to Dubai. Some of you must have used your GE Biz, also developed by NIIT. That's the other kind of work that we do. In China, we focused on education. In 1997, my board gave me a ticket and said, go to China, Shanghai, and check what is it that we can do. So that evening on my way home, I picked up a book, Lonely Planet, because I did not know where was Shanghai on the world map. And like all intelligent IT people, I went on the net and figured out a hotel called Donghu, packed my bags, and I left. It's a different matter. I spent 3 hours in the Hangzhou airport because nobody understood when I said Donghu Hotel. And that was my entry into China. I stayed there for 21 days, went back to the board, and gave them a 5-year plan. They one more time gave me a ticket and said, just go back and do it. And that's why I've been. So when we went there, a foreigner doing education, which is a market-driven format of education, not a social-driven education format, education which is for-profit, was a no-no. Everybody was worried. Shanghai was willing to experiment, and therefore they gave us a limited license of having one education center through a contractual agreement with the Education Bureau of Shanghai. And we came up with a big ad which said, it doesn't matter if you're a black cat or a white cat, what matters if you're a smart one, and therefore come to NIIT, you'll get smart. We had 2,000 youngsters in our front office. We also had the Education Bureau criticizing me, saying you can't use Mr. Deng Xiaoping's statements in the net. And therefore I knew that one thing that I need to deal with is contradiction. Anything that is right is equally wrong in China. And therefore we started our journey. We took on 1,000 students and started training them in IT. We did 2.5-year programs, which was new in China. The first 2.5 years was a huge learning. How to sell, how to market, how to recruit, how to train the trainer, how to localize the product. Quite a bit of learning. And then we understood that anything that we were following, which came from India or the United States, was not really working in China. The way a student learned in China was, for example, very different from the way he learned in India. And therefore we had to change the training methodology to suit the Chinese mind. So huge amount of learning. And when the first batch of 92 students graduated and when they all got jobs at multinational and local software companies, is when I went to the government and requested if we could open a whole new foreign enterprise, which we did in the year 2000, and then started a franchise operation in China, where we gave the technology and the know-how, and we had local people who came with the infrastructure and the knowledge of that territory. Because China is indeed a mosaic of cultures. From there, we had universities coming to us, becoming our franchise partners, and later started embedding a curriculum into their bachelor's degree. And today we find The governments in cities participating through a public-private partnership model where they give us huge amount of subsidies and funds to train students. So we are in 66 cities, 200 centers. We work with about 130 universities and colleges. We last year trained a little more than 50,000 students. That's where we are today. So one thing that we've always held is to grow our top line because China gives you that opportunity. As against many other countries where you need to kind of be careful with your profits. You need to be careful in any case. But China gave us the ability to grow over the years at about 36 to 40% CAGR. So growing the top line was a big thing for us in China. The second thing we found was building a brand is everything. And you get a 3-year window to do that. It's everything because in China, big is beautiful. And if you're a brand, we find you're protected from IPR violations as well. Because everybody keeps away from you. So building a brand became important. If I had to do things a little differently, I probably would not be in 66 cities. It's better to look at and penetrate into a city or a province as best, rather than a widespread. And there are many reasons. One is the fact that the policies are different, the law is different, affordability is different, culture is different, language is different, and therefore it takes up huge amount of management time. Awareness per dollar. Every city has its own media and equally expensive. And therefore your advertising costs become huge. And then of course there's the 80-20 rule of 40 cities accounting for 80% of the wealth of China. So many companies are advised saying, do not go into 100 cities. Stay focused. It is better therefore to leverage your brand, your channel in a city by expanding on products. At the time when we went in, price points were critical in China. Today, that is not true. We have people who sell courses which help you speak English at 100,000 RMB. And you have people who sell English-speaking courses at 1,000 RMB as well. And there's an audience who will both. So if you have premium products, if you're looking at niche areas, it's best to stay in a few cities and grow them, rather than move very, very quickly. Indeed, we also said that profitability of a education center that we have is fundamental, and that should grow before we get into any other formats. I would also think franchising was a mistake. I did not know when I went to China that the only country where McDonald's and KFC does not franchise is China. They started doing it much later, in the year 2006, once they became strong themselves. So all McDonald's and KFC restaurants are run by themselves, as against a complete franchise agreement with the rest of the world. Huge difficulties in managing the channel. Not too much of respect for your standards and processes. And contract violations in renting. So over a period of time, we still have our franchise relationships with universities, but you cut back heavily, in fact completely stop any kind of new franchising formats with any other entity other than university. This was a huge learning. Intellectual property right, we keep talking about it all the time. You need to be prepared for reverse engineering. I keep saying that if you can take apart something, then they put it back faster and cheaper for you. So we had initially copycat versions. You had mini NIITs all over the place, and we had to kind of police that. You have direct IP violations, like copying your course material, and we had to have innovative ways of trying to minimize that, apart from creating huge systems. So we had to deliberately make mistakes in our course material, because as per Chinese law, if a mistake is copied, then you can sue the fellow. So you have to have innovative methods of doing things which is not relevant in India. I don't agree that there are no IP violations in India, but here it's a little different. And you also find what I call the quick last mile innovation in China. So my daughter many years ago bought a skipping rope, and the skipping rope had a difference. It had a counter. So every time you skip, you didn't need to count. That's a last mile Chinese innovation. So what we were going through was people took the course, added something to it, innovated, very good innovations, and you had to deal with that problem. Your government is your best friend and your worst enemy. In our case, we had two good things going for us, apart from the good work we were doing. One, India had shown very strong direction in information technology, and therefore we had a red carpet rolled out for us because we were trying to teach something to society. The other was, I don't think the Chinese government thought that we were eating from their plate. They really believed that we were trying to do some good to society. And therefore, anywhere we went, this is the big difference I see between what we do and very difficult parts some of my colleagues in other companies, other industries face. So today, anywhere I go in China, the first thing I do is to discuss with the government of that city or that province. Explain to them what is it that we would like to do. Create a vision for them. Sit with them, create a vision along with them in terms of what is talent development and how they see it going in the next 10 years. And I see if you have something which they believe they lack, then they definitely want you. So it's been a little easier for a company like ours to establish itself in China. And we're finding many city governments coming forth and giving us a huge amount of subsidies, saying, look at talent development in the service sector. So while earlier China was trying to create a service sector much like the way they created the manufacturing sector, which is create big infrastructure, physical infrastructure, the service industry probably needs human infrastructure building. And today, I truly believe that the government is moving funds in that direction as well. People is your single biggest challenge. I think the chairman touched upon it. But what I find is local managers seem to be the best. You have to spend time, mentor and coach them, but over a period, they're fantastic. The other thing that you find difficult is emotional ownership. First is to oneself. It takes time, but soon enough, it moves to a relationship with the supervisor. And it's taken me 15 years to groom a lot of my colleagues, Chinese colleagues, to have that emotional ownership on the organizational values, what you really stand for, how is it that society is benefiting through you. And that's why you can create a sustainable culture in your organization. It takes time. And lastly on the subject, I also understood Indians seem to plan a little better, but there's no way you can execute like the way the Chinese do. So I keep saying Indians can't work or the Chinese can't think in a kind of lighter way. Big is beautiful. We are moving from capacities of training 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 kind of students to capacities of 10,000. So as we move forward, and the next time I meet you, I'm not going to tell you 66 cities have become 76. I'm going to tell you a lower number because we're consolidating. Instead of waiting closer to the customer, large setups with dormitory facilities, etc., seem to work a lot better, as we have seen in places like Wuxi, Suzhou, Chongqing, Chengdu, Qingdao. The list is endless. So we are moving from getting into many cities into consolidating into 25 cities, which are the hotspots, as the government has declared in China. So it's been a very long journey. Sometimes we call it a challenge. Sometimes I call it a frustration. But at the end of it, there's a huge light at the end of the tunnel. And therefore, it's been a great experience as far as NIT is concerned, as far as I'm concerned. It's been such a fantastic ride. I would like to thank Chairman, and I'd also like to thank Dr. Palin for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.